Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back, or welcome to another Bangs audio review. How you doing? Been a while, like less than 24 hours. Anyway, you know, obviously went through the dongle DAX yesterday, and I, felt like it was pretty incomplete. So that's why I put up the poll in the community. There's no question y'all want to see a full review of the Onyx Alpha 11T1, so that will be coming. And I will promise to do a little comp with the EPZ TP30, which I definitely feel is a very good value too, if not as fancy as the Onyx, but that will be coming. So in the meantime, I've got a couple of sets to catch up on from IVIPQ, and I would like to thank them for extending an extra discount to me for being a reviewer. So I won't get into exactly how much it was, but I will let you know that the Conch V13, which is what we're doing today, is like kind of on crazy sale on AliExpress right now for like 86 and change US dollars, which is only about $20 more than I paid for it, to be honest with you. So that may factor into my overall recommendation status of this particular set at the moment. Anyway, even though I am not working and I barely go anywhere, somehow or other I still managed to pick up a cold. I'm just like kind of over being sick in any way, shape, or form. It's a bunch of BS because I'm like not even putting myself at risk at this point, at least not from what I can tell. I'm trying to be careful, try to stay healthy before the surgery. So hopefully this is the last little thing I catch before I go under the knife in a couple 3 weeks. So that being said, we march forward because I've got to get as many reviews done as well as I can before the surgery. So if I have to take time off more than a couple of weeks, you guys will have some stuff to look at. So that being said, we'll move forward with the Conch V13 review from IVIPQ. I'm going to save a little bit of time on the unbox because there is no box. Both the Conch V13 and the V12 came in basically like an Amazon blister pack, not from Amazon because they were from AliExpress, and managed to make it all the way from China in just that padded envelope with no damage. So there you go. There's an argument for reduced packaging, right? Everything that is needed came in this carry case, which is barely pocketable, but in a pinch I guess you could. Pretty sturdy, so definitely baggable. And then a lot of individual wrapping. So 2 little bags for the IEM separately, bag for the cable, and then another bag that held the terminations, which it comes with 3.5 and 4.4 and a modular cable, and 1 set of ear tips, 1 set of silicone, I would say normal bore ear tips, which I didn't use. That's typical of me. I went straight for the Divinous Velvet. In this case, I ended up using the wide bore, and for the first time actually preferred them over the normal bore Divinous Velvet tips. So that was kind of cool. And I'll get into why. It has to do with the tuning and the switches and so on and so forth. Why I think wider bore tips for this set in particular are very important. So and obviously we'll get into why during the Sonic Impressions section. But let's go into the specs really quick here. I think I've got them up. Yep, right on the AliExpress website, IVIPQ Official. I will link their store in the description as per our agreement. That's just obviously courteous to do anyway, but we will. So you guys can go straight to the source to get them should you decide to purchase. Okay, so this is the Conch V13. It is a 2 dynamic driver, 2 balanced armature set, so 4 drivers per side. The dynamics are a 10mm and a 6mm. And those are coaxial, I believe. and then, or maybe they're one on top of the other. Okay. Then there's a BA for the mids and a BA for the highs. And in some respects, and I'll get into how I feel like they interact with, or what switches control what. Seems kind of obvious, but we can go into sort of how it performed in different modes. But that's your setup. So I'm a fan of the dual dynamic drivers. I like the 10.6 setup. The 10.6 is in the Project Zero Red from Kryn and is it Truth Here? Yeah, Truth Here. Zero Red. And also in the Ulam by Continuum. It has a 10.6 setup as well. Impedance, 23 ohms, sensitivity 109 decibels. They were not hard to drive. You can certainly do them just off of a straight dongle, should you like. Should be fine. I didn't. I used a variety of different DAC amp situations, as you can see. Move that guy out of the way again. Keep forgetting to do that. So yes, you got the modular plug cable. So 3.5 and 4.4 come with it. Very, it's the resistance, or the, it's not a screw-on. It's relying on friction. So I'm sure that after tons and tons of times, it might get a little bit loose for changing, but nothing that really most normal people would have to worry about. I only changed the 4.4 out to 3.5 so I could do the measurements. 3D printed resin, and then your cable is a 4-core GUI single copper wire, and it is, IVIPQ, if you don't know, is a cable company first and foremost. So the cable that this comes with is freaking nice. Just really way above what you would normally find in a $100-ish IEM. I think the regular retail on these is like $109. I've gotten some real crap cables with $100 IEMs before, not to name names, and I'm not going to, but there are some of the usual suspects who just seem to phone it in for the cable for whatever reason. These guys did not. The cable is fantastic, so no need to cable swap. You will need probably to use your wider, at least normal to wider bore ear tips of choice on them. That's my recommendation to get the best performance out of them. And the feel, they're pretty. They're black with silver and gold sort of flecks and sparkles and striations throughout, swirlies. Smoky sort of finish, but you can look in and see the drivers. So they are the dynamics are stacked, and then separately you've got the BAs with their own acoustic tubes. And then at the very end here, the nozzle is pretty short, which was another reason that I needed to do the more cylindrical shape tips versus the more conical shaped tips to get a good seal and fit that will stay put. So, and of course, the most interesting thing probably in the design of these are the tuning switches. Now, my set did not come with a tuning switch tool. I happen to have a couple, kicking around from other sets. So I'm not sure if that was, if it should have come with this type of tool, but it didn't. If yours doesn't, you can use, like a safety pin or something with, something fairly small to move those switches up and down. They are pretty easy to manipulate, though. So I will say that. And it's a flush 2-pin connection, which is super solid. So no issues about the connection point and things falling off or being too loose or whatever. They're solid, very solid. It's to the point where I can't get them back in. Luckily, you won't really have to because you got the modular cable, and there we go. So there's not going to be much of a need for that anyway. Cable feels nice. Really does. God, I wish more companies would put, but IVIPQ is a cable company, so I guess you would be disappointed if it weren't a premium cable in this situation. So there you go. There's your unbox. your specs and your accessories. I mean, I feel like I was hesitant before. Like I've had these in and out of my Ali cart like several times over probably the past 6 to 8 months, and for whatever reason, inexperience, whatever, fear, I just didn't. I was like, well, God, there isn't even a box, And then I ordered the brand equals generic 5 dynamic driver per side BS set that came in like a plastic sleeve and just like this, and I was like, okay, so that put me off even more. I'm like, oh God, are they just garbage, because they don't have a box? Yeah, don't worry about that. Okay, it has nothing to do with what's in there. It's what's inside that counts, right? And what you have is a very, very high quality modular cable and very, very fun, versatile, quality sounding IEMs. Okay, that's your focus. If you got to throw your favorite tips on them, fine. You don't have to do anything else. Everything else is covered for you. Okay, so don't hesitate just because they don't have a box. Think of it as they're trying to help save the planet, I guess. Anyway, we'll leave these out so we can play with them and look at them some more. Whoa. Oh, great. Anyway, there goes the V12. Luckily, the case is quite durable and protective. So, I want to get into the graph because I think this is going to be about the most amount of time we're going to spend sonic impressions and the graph of the different switch settings. Okay, so we will start one at a time here, just to sort of keep it a little bit clearer. First measurement was taken, this is all on the left side. First measurement was taken with both of the tuning switches in the on position. So switch 1, switch 2, up. Okay? Don't mind the hand gesture. I don't know what the hell that was. But anyway, so as you can hopefully, I'm going to try to zoom in here a little bit, hopefully see from this that you've got a nice amount of sub bass, there is rumble, mid bass, there is definitely impact. It comes off, there's a little bleed into the mids, I will be honest with you, with the bass switch up in particular. Mids don't really, to me, seem that far recessed with both switches up. Fairly mild ear gain, and then a really nicely extended treble with just a little, little dip around 10K and a little bit of a peak right just before you get into that sibilance range here. But I didn't notice them being particularly sibilant, just maybe a tiny little bit here and there depending on genre. Okay, so my favorite setting, of course, is going to be with the bass boost on. I call it the first setting officially is balanced. So both switches up, balanced. Okay. Second setting I tested was both switches down. Why not, right? Go full bore and then go, let's mellow out a bit. So as you can see, everything comes down from the bass, although the curve is very similar. So it's not like you lost all of the bass. It just, took it down a notch or two. And then as you come up here, it's funny to me that actually the treble is a little bit more prominent with both switches off, because I thought that second switch might have to do, maybe it has to do with the mid-range driver and not the high-end driver. Maybe that's it. Okay, so I didn't get any real insight into that. It was just more of tuning styles and not how they were physically changing it. This is what I'm going off of, basically, is my experience of it and the graph. What was I going to say about the third setting? Sorry, we'll get right. So I'll go back into the third setting. I'll take the first setting off so it doesn't get too confusing. This is a setting that I also liked a lot. Bass, again, high, and then treble, the ear gain's a little bit, maybe a little bit too mild for vocal-centric music, as you can see, but I did like it. I liked it for metal, of course. So this is the switch 1 on, switch 2 off. And then, just to round it out, switch 1 off, in other words, bass off, and switch 2 on. This is called the vocal setting, vocal centric, okay? So both switches on, just to go through it, both switches on, you're looking at balanced. Both switches off is called pure tone, okay? So that's this one, right? And then bass switch, or first switch on, second switch off, this is the bass boost. And then lastly is the bass switch off, and the second switch on, and there's your vocal setting. So you can see right here, this is and it's really much more vocal centric. The bass is reduced, and that ear gain's a little bit more energetic, and you still don't lose a lot here up in the top end. Listen, I knew I was gonna obsess over this. I just did. You know, I had no doubt. I'm like, oh God, switches. You know, I don't typically do switches because this is what happens. I obsess over them. Like, I can't stop messing with them. I have to change them, you know, to all the different settings during one song. You know, and it's just like, you know, it's a little bit too much to play with for me. Like, I don't mind tip rolling, and I don't mind even changing a nozzle out or two, you know, to see how that goes. But having the ability to just literally change the tuning mid-song, it's not good for me because I mess with things too much, you know. So I would say if I had to pick a setting, it would be both switches on. Just go full bore, the balanced one, and enjoy. If you want to set it and forget it, that's the way that I preferred it. Okay. YMMV, right? Depends on what you listen to, your preference. Okay. So, but overall, I would call this a musical, sort of fun musical tuning, right? Very enjoyable, very engaging. No matter what settings you had the switches on, it kind of has that DNA of just a fun set. Not a super technical set, not a super huge soundstage, not overly intimate, but I wouldn't say it's super wide or high. It had some depth to it, you know. It did have some depth to it, and it got a little bit bigger with the more, the less, you know, with the reduced bass setting. So if you went and you took off, if you turned off the first switch, then you're looking at more like more soundstage, more treble, focus, right? But that's not where I live. You know, like, I was like, God, if I actually prefer the bass switch off, then I'm going to have to turn in my bass head, like, card, you know, member card, which I refuse to do. So my favorite settings were that way, with the bass on. Genres, it performed well. Across genres, I feel like it's a pretty well balanced tuning. I will say this, okay, because this has come up before from y'all, a couple of y'all. If you are sensitive to BA timbre, then you're probably not going to like the treble on this set, because it's not a super natural sounding treble. It's good, you know, it's not offensive, but it definitely has that sort of little essy, hissy kind of thing going on at times, especially in cymbal strikes. And again, complementary, like, to this set, reminded me a bit of the AFU Performer 5 and Performer 8 in that respect. Those two sets are both a little bit more natural than this one, you know, in the treble, but kind of reminded me of that BA timbre that I found on the AFU or AFU sets, you know, previously. To me, not offensive. To some of y'all, maybe not your thing. Okay, that's kind of the only real knock that I have on it. The bass, I think the bass on it is very interesting. Here's what I think happens when you switch off the bass switch. I think what happens is that that second dynamic driver, the 6mm, becomes a passive radiator. That's the feel, because it gets a little softer and less impactful. So I feel like instead of supplying the 6mm dynamic driver with power, they're just giving it to the 10mm and letting the 6mm just sort of vibrate on its own. It's my guess. Again, I don't know, but that's what it sounded like to me. The bass is good. It's not amazing. It's not super detailed. It does bleed a bit when you have that bass switch engaged. But if you're a bass head, you'll love it. You know, it doesn't overtake everything. It's just there's more. You know, even with the bass switch off, I feel like there's a little bit of bleed. You know, even with that off, I feel like it does bleed into the mids a little bit. I don't feel like it's covering anything too much, but enough that if you're not a fan of bass, it's going to probably bother you. So there you go. Those are the two sort of criticisms I would have. The bass could have been a little bit faster and a little bit like quicker decay. Would have been nice, but it's still very satisfying, very fulfilling, very impactful. Just, you know, really good, yummy bass. And the treble, I wish, was just a tad more natural. That's it. Those are my only complaints about the set. Everything else I think is great. I think it's a really good all-rounder. I think it's great to have the tuning switches on it. I didn't think I was going to be a fan of them. Still not sure I am a fan of them because I mess with them too much. Well, I could just need to leave them alone. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I can. So, but again, I won't make my problems your problems. That's just me. If you find that you're a tinkerer, the tuning switches might be too much for you to deal with. And it is another possible point of failure. But whatever, okay, fine. Overall, I give the set a recommendation. I'm not going to go highly recommended because of the aforementioned issues that I had, you know, and just some of the tonal quality and a little bit of bass bleed. But it does get a recommend. I think it's a perfect set. Like if you're bored with your collection and you don't have a set that has tuning switches and you want to have something you can just play with, this is a great set for that. And for $86, really high value. You know, for $109, it's still high value, but for $86, you know, for the price, I'll give it a highly recommended. For overall performance, it's just getting my middle of the road recommend. Like, yeah, I'd buy it. I'd buy it again. I'd prefer to buy it for under $100, but, you know, I wouldn't be disappointed if I did purchase it for $109. So just put it that way. So, yeah, I knew it was going to be a long one again. It's because of the switches, the dang tuning switches. But I felt like it was worth going into detail because they are there. And other than the Raptico bridge, my only other experience with tuning switches, and these tuning switches were a lot more, I think, changed the tonality a lot more than the bridge did. The bridge's tuning switches did. Like, those were subtle differences. These are freaking noticeable. You will know, especially when that bass switch is on or off. So, switch 2, the mid treble switch, a little more subtle. You can see that right up here. The treble is not a huge, there's not a huge difference there. Anyway, that's going to wrap it for today. I was wondering if IVIPQ could make good IEMs, because, you know, sometimes cable companies can, and sometimes they kind of struggle a little bit. I'd say this was a good intro. I'd say that I would like to hear more, and I'm going to hear more, because the next review is going to be the V12, unless I decide to pull a fast one on y'all and do the direct competitor to these, which would be the CCA Hydro and its tuning switches. So I'm going to make up my mind this afternoon which is happening next. One of those two reviews will be posted Thursday or Friday. That's all I got for you. Be careful, be safe, be nice. I love y'all. Nothing but peace to you, and we'll see you soon.